आदाब। इख्तिलाफ के बगैर जमहूरियत चल नहीं सकती, मुआशरे ताज़ा नहीं होते, नई तहरीकें आगे नहीं बढ़ती। मैं हूं वजाहत सईद खान और मैं आज इख्तिलाफ कर रहा हूं अमरीकी सिफारत खाने के दो अहम अहलकारों से। ये दोनों पिछले साल सवा साल से पाकिस्तान में अपने मुल्क के लिए काम करते आ रहे हैं। इससे पहले ये दोनों काफ़ी सालों से इंटरनेशनल डिप्लोमेसी में इन्वॉल्व हैं। पाकिस्तान में इन दोनों की पहली पोस्टिंग है। इनका नाम रायन हैरिस और रॉबर्ट ह्यूइंग है। रायन अपने फील्ड में पब्लिक रिलेशंस देखती हैं। पाकिस्तान के प्रेस के साथ, पाकिस्तानी हुकूमत के साथ अमरीकी हुकूमत क्या कहती है। दिस इज हर जॉब। हर जॉब इज बेसिकली फॉर द पीपल ऑफ पाकिस्तान टू अंडरस्टैंड द पोजीशन ऑफ द पीपल ऑफ द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स। उनके हमआहंग रॉबर्ट ह्यूइंग साहब हैं। ये इकोनॉमिक सेक्शन को देखते हैं। पाकिस्तान और अमेरिका, ये शायद हर एक को पता है, आजकल इत्तेहादी भी हैं, थोड़ी बहुत इनकी कुटी भी होती रहती है, मगर रॉबर्ट ह्यूइंग का काम है कि पाकिस्तान और अमेरिका साथ साथ इकोनॉमिकली भी साथ काम करते रहें। आज इख्तिलाफ भी होगा, गप भी लगेंगी। आई एम गोइंग टू जंप स्ट्रेट इनटू अ couple of informal questions to break the ice, because there's evidently there's some in the last few months, especially of bilateralism. Ryan, Rob, thank you for joining us, guys.
Thank you for having us.
All right, well, I'm going to jump straight to it. Are we that bad? Are things with Pakistan really that bad right now? And what's up with the mistrust bit? Why does the mistrust word, the M word, always keep on coming up when it comes to Pak-US bilateralism from both sides?
Well, I think we've had a difficult time the last 24 months. No one would deny that. There have been a series of incidents that have caused tension on both sides. But to be honest, we're trying not to use that word right now. We believe that this relationship is on an upward trajectory. We've had a series of very productive engagements over the past 6 months, let's say, since the summer, since the ground lines of communications were open, since your foreign minister made her very first trip to the United States, since Ambassador Grossman has had a series of very productive visits here to Pakistan, and since we've had an arrival of a brand new ambassador. So I think things are on the upward trajectory, and I'd like to move away from using that term.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're being an optimist about this, Ryan, but I'm going to push this forward. The reason I'm not in Islamabad, I'm in Karachi in our election headquarters, is because we were giving a lot of coverage, a lot of attention to the American elections. And because of that, and by the way, we worked together on that, and I appreciate that. However, a couple of things couldn't be ignored, at least from my end editorially, about the Pakistan factor in the U.S. elections. The elections might be over, but it seems that the Pakistan narrative is singular between the two parties. There's actually a lot of convergence in Pakistan. We heard candidate Romney, well, now former candidate back to Governor Romney, say that he's worried about Pakistan because it's technically an ally and is not acting like one. On the other hand, similar stuff along the same vein, if not exactly the same, was said by President Obama in context of the raid on Osama bin Laden's compound. That if Pakistan had been taken in the loop, well, there wouldn't have been an attack. There would have been no success. Which goes on to once again bring me to the big question. Is Pakistan so inherently so distrustful for the people of the United States that it's an election issue which basically just once again spells of mistrust?
I think it's more important to focus on the consensus between the two candidates, that this relationship is important, that we want to have a constructive partnership with Pakistan, that we have joint goals and joint objectives, and we want to see those move forward. That's the message that I heard most clearly coming out of the debate and coming out of the messages from both candidates. I think we are confident that this president will want to move forward and to reinforce the upward movement, as I said before, in this relationship in his next term, and that's what we're expecting.
Right, fair enough. Spoken like a true diplomat. Rob, let me swing the guns your way. I wouldn't call it brilliant. It's at least interesting. There's a book by an old CIA hand, Bruce Rydell. It's called The Deadly Embrace. I think it makes sense to me because it reminds me of that, especially in the wake of what Governor Romney said the other day about our so-called 100 nuclear weapons. I don't know where you got that count from, but anyways, I know you're an economics man, and you're probably I don't know if you're a U2 fan or not, but that whole with or without you thesis applies to what I'm about to ask you. From a U.S. perspective, you guys do a lot of hard work. You guys invest a lot of money in this country, from USAID, from consulting with our government, from the different ministries. But the bottom line exists that, is it worth it? If I was an American taxpayer, I would be pretty surprised if I bumped into you at a bar or someplace and said, dude, why do you give these guys millions and billions of dollars for what? I mean, we don't even, once again, we can't even look eye to eye with these guys on anything. Do you have that problem internally, and how do you deal with that?
Well, Wajahat, we have a strong interest in the economic prosperity of Pakistan. I can certainly give you some recent examples of that. Most recently, I was in London. We had the U.S.-Pakistan bilateral investment conference, working hand in hand with both the Ministry of Commerce and the Board of Investment here. I think what both Pakistanis and Americans are looking for is a relationship that is based on not only government-to-government government-to-government interactions, but also interactions between the two business communities. And that conference in London cemented that in my mind. I was pleased to see that both a strong contingent of Pakistani business people were paired with a number of businesses in the U.S. who were interested in doing business in Pakistan. So this is one of the things when you look at bilateral trade between the two countries.
Right, Rob, but I mean, break it down for me at the human level. I mean, assume that you and I went to college together, and I bump into you after all these years at the grocery store, and we're catching up. And you tell me you work in the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad in the economics section, and I say, man, I mean, what about those Pakistanis? They don't make sense. They say left and they go right. And why, Rob? Considering we're college mates, you can tell me. Why are you giving these Pakistanis millions of dollars when it actually backfires all the time? Anti-American sentiment is high. They burn our flags by the hundreds almost every Friday. What's up with that? Give it to me. Break it down at a human level for me.
I mean, I still think at a human level, interactions are very much based on person-to-person interaction. And one of that person-to-person interaction is trade and investment. This is a global phenomena around the world.
All right. Okay. Ryan, I'm going to swing back to you. There's a BBC poll which came out a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago. Probably caught your eye. It sure caught mine. Pakistan, in this survey of several countries, it was the only country which polled against President Barack Obama. This is strange because just 4 years ago, I was here, I was covering the American elections, and my God, people didn't even know John McCain's name. It was an overwhelming international victory as well for Obama back in 2008, and he was huge in Pakistan. How do you guys tackle this internally? Like, I mean, isn't public diplomacy more of a challenge now than ever? I mean, Pakistan is actually voting in favor of Mitt Romney. My God, how does that work out?
I did see that poll. I've also seen polls that said the contrary. And one sort of fun fact is that, we conducted our own poll on our Embassy Islamabad Facebook page, which, believe me, has both true fans of the United States and also those people who very much object to our policies. So we conducted our own poll, and actually on our Facebook page, you might be pleased to hear, it was overwhelmingly in favor of President Obama. And these are not just from people who offer positive comments on our Facebook page. They're also from people who offer some pretty harsh criticism as well. So what I think the polling shows is just that there's an intense interest in the election because there's intense interest in the relationship. On the public diplomacy question, I think it's a great one that you raise. I think that we do need much more human contact between our two countries. It's one of the reasons that the United States is prioritizing educational exchange in this country. We send about 1,000 Pakistani Fulbrighters to the United States every single year so that we can develop that personal interaction and so that we can overcome the misperceptions on both sides.
I was hoping to hear a little more regarding that, because it really says something. If Barack Obama had an overwhelming majority of at least public opinion in his favor 4 years ago, what has gone wrong? I'm going to talk to Ryan Harris and Robert Ewing about that. इन दोनों से मैं यही पूछूंगा कि 4 साल बाद सदर बराक हुसैन ओबामा ने क्या किया पाकिस्तान के साथ कि उनकी मकबूलियत, पाकिस्तान दुनिया का वाहिद मुल्क है जो सर्वेज के अकॉर्डिंग टू सर्वेज जो उन्हें पसंद नहीं करता। ये ब्रेक के बाद हमारे साथ रहिए, इख्तिलाफ यूएस एम्बेसी के साथ जारी रहेगा। Welcome back to Ikhtilaf with the U.S. Embassy. Ryan Harris from the press section and Robert Ewing from the economic section. Guys, take this up. Once again, both from a public diplomacy point of view as well as an economic point of view. What in the world is AFPAC? I mean, listen, I don't know how much time you've spent in this country, but it was always Indo-Pak. We always were considered a part of the larger Indian subcontinent. And then 1947 happened, and then it was still there. And all of a sudden, there was AFPAC, which made us a part of the world, which, frankly, we were never a part of. And then the guy who coined the term AFPAC, one Richard Albrook, dies. And then the guy who takes over from him, well, I mean, nobody really knows what he does. And I'm talking about Ambassador Grossman. People call him the anonymous ambassador. Nobody even knows what he looks like. The level of interaction with the Pakistani press and people is yay small when it comes to him. So draw it out for me. What happened with the AFPAC equation and what went wrong?
Waj, to be honest, you know, I think that that term is used much more outside of the United States than it is inside of the United States. Obviously, Pakistan has a critical role to play in the future of Afghanistan, and we see that, we recognize that, and we want to foster that. But we have specific and separate bilateral goals for Pakistan that also have nothing to do with Afghanistan. So, you know, I want to caution your viewers about believing that we view Pakistan solely through the prism of our relationship with Afghanistan. It's simply not true. We have distinct goals here. We have economic engagement. We are investing in the health and education sector. We have counterterrorism cooperation. There are a whole host of objectives that are separate and distinct from our relationships with other countries in the region.
No, I appreciate that. But once again, and let's take this to Rob, for economic purposes, once again, Rob, don't you think it's time for the U.S. to maybe think about, once again, in a broader perspective with long-term economic sustainability in mind, the Silk Route, I know, the Silk Route project announced by the Secretary of State as a part of this. Before you go there, I'll acknowledge it, that isn't this one large region? And isn't Indo-Pak, for example, I mean, I know a general who's very fond of saying that the road to peace in Kabul leads from peace between Islamabad and Delhi. So once again, de-hyphenating Pakistan from India, and which started in the first and second Clinton presidencies. I mean, de-hyphenating Pakistan from India, does that even make sense in the economic section anymore? Is AFPAC just like a pipe dream, dreamed up by Holbrooke and then essentially died with him? Is that a correct assumption, economically?
Well, also, Waj, to repeat what Ryan said, clearly we have individual economic goals here in Pakistan, but I would also like to draw your viewers' attention to the goals of the government of Pakistan in terms of the recent commerce ministers meeting held here in Islamabad that has opened trade between India and Pakistan, and similar meetings that have gone on between Pakistan and Afghanistan with the goal of opening trade between both Pakistan and Afghanistan. So again, this is both our distinct goals here in Pakistan, but the regional goals of Pakistan and its neighbors in terms of trading economically.
Fair enough. Once again, it's a safe and sound response. It's what I was expecting. But does de-hyphenation with India, which is essentially the unwritten policy of Washington when it comes to Delhi and Islamabad, I mean, does it make sense to the folks at the economic section? It doesn't to me. Why would you cut off two countries which have been linked for thousands of years and make this country link up with another one? And I'm not talking about geostrategy, I'm just talking about economics.
You know, when I look at this from an economic perspective, clearly, as I say, we have individual goals here in Pakistan, but we are very supportive of the increased trade between Pakistan and India. So I don't think you can say de-hyphenation. I think it is both a Pakistani economic set of goals we have here, and we are also extremely supportive of the goals of Pakistan as it moves toward increased trade with India.
No, but the dehyphenation boils down to a bunch of other things. For example, on the nuke deal, et cetera, et cetera. I've got to move on. I'm not going to get into an extensive debate here. But real quick, Ryan, fears in the corridors of Islamabad and Rawalpindi that a setback is due with the possible exit. A setback to bilateralism is due with the possible exit of Secretary Clinton. Is it true? Is she going to stick around? Reports of her thinking of leaving the second Obama presidency. And if it is true, what's going to happen? I mean, who's going to be ambassador? Who's going to be who's going to be the new secretary? And is their vision going to matter? Can you sort of tell us to sort of take a chill pill on this one? Because there's a lot of fears about steamed up bilateralism here.
Sure. You know, Secretary Clinton has said for many, many months that she did not intend to serve beyond a second term. I think she's looking forward to returning to private life and to having a little bit more time for herself and for her family. So this was a long expected development. We don't know yet who will be the next Secretary of State, but the bottom line is that U.S. foreign policy is not dependent on a single personality. So regardless of who takes up that honor, we don't expect there to be a significant shift in our foreign policy here in Pakistan.
Right, but isn't it troublesome? Aren't you guys already talking about a possible setback? I mean, I'm assuming, I know not U.S. foreign policy isn't around one person. I mean, I know this isn't, there's a larger, more complicated and sophisticated process in play. But come on, I mean, sex-state matters. I mean, their interaction, their ties, the languages they speak, the countries they've been to before, all of it matters. I mean, tell me that you guys have a plan in play for the transition period, which is about to come up.
Of course we do, as we have a plan in place for every transition. Secretary Clinton was wonderful, but this is a long expected development, and no, we are not worried. We are confident that the administration will appoint a new Secretary of State who's every bit of capable and who's every bit as devoted to developing as productive a relationship with Pakistan as possible. And to return to your question on our ambassador, as you may know, we are a professional diplomatic service. We do serve at the pleasure of the president, but we don't expect a change in our personnel here at the embassy in Pakistan as a result of the change in Secretary of State.
Right. I have a couple of follow-ups on that. I'm going to take a quick break and come back at you. I'm going to compare your diplomatic mission, for example, to other ones like the British and the Chinese, and we're going to draw some comparisons there. Stay with us, Ryan, Rob. इख्तिलाफ में हमारे साथ रहिए. अमरीकी सफारत खाने के दो अहम अहलकार, रायन हैरिस पब्लिक रिलेशन सेक्शन से, उनकी पब्लिक रिलेशंस में, और इकोनॉमिक्स सेक्शन के चीफ, दोनों हमारे साथ हैं. आप भी हमारे साथ रहिए. Okay, Ryan, Rob, take it away on this one. I'm sure you've heard the narrative, which is rampant in Islamabad and Rawalpindi about China, that Pak-China bilateralism and the friendship, bilateralism is too hard a word for it. Friendship is higher than deeper than the oceans and higher than the mountains and all of that fun stuff. And then there's the good old British, I mean, for who less is more. And evidently, the word is, and I do cover the Foreign Office for a living, it just seems that there's an air of, well, almost matrimony with China, but an air of sufficient amenability with the Brits. What's up with just day-to-day tactical problems between Pakistan's Foreign Office and you guys? Why is, once again, the U.S. bad at its diplomatic mission, generally?
Oh, gosh, I don't think we're going to agree with you that we're bad at our diplomatic mission.
Bad at getting along with the Pakistanis. That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
I don't know that that's true, to be honest. I mean, we have a very robust mission here, and we have, we're a very busy mission, and we have all sorts of exciting things going on any given day, and we have very productive meetings with Pakistanis at all levels of society. And just to sort of get back to your point on China or the UK, we're not rivals in this relationship, We think it's great that Pakistan has a strong relationship with China. China is an important world power. We also are always trying to improve our relationship with China. So one relationship isn't to the exclusion of the other.
But I mean, come on. I mean, you guys are with all those billions of dollars of aid coming in, all that investment, all that talk of a bilateral treaty, all that cooperation on anti-terrorism. It just seems you talk to someone in the Foreign Office and they'll be like, you know how many Urdu speakers they have in their press team? 0. You talk to a journalist outside, he'll be the same. I mean, and I'm just talking about your team. And I mean, it's just, the bottom line is the U.S., well, once again, adapted enough to working in Pakistan? Because keep in mind, a British diplomat told me this, that his guys and gals stick around for 3, 4, 5 years till they become Pakistan experts. No such thing with you guys. You're in and out in a year, which is a huge structural problem. By the time us journalists and everybody else gets to know you guys and you get to know us, you're gone. Isn't that a problem?
Well, we would love to have people here who could stay for 3 or 4 years, and we do have people on our mission who are staying longer than a year. In fact, Robert is one of those examples because he's starting his 2nd year in Pakistan. I think it's better to measure the relationship in terms of results. And what I'd like to point out about that is just some of the things that we've gotten accomplished here, you know, regardless of the composition of our mission or regardless of how many Urdu speakers we have, this relationship is turning out results. 600 kilometers of reconstructed and paved roads in Pakistan, 10,000 Pakistanis going on university scholarships provided by the U.S., half the population of Fatah being provided with clean drinking water. These are results that I think we can both be proud of, regardless of the composition of our mission here in Pakistan.
Okay, I'm going to go to, that was fair enough. You guys can take this. I'm assuming it falls under your purview, but I know your stated position on drones, so I'm not going to beat the old drum on that. But I want to sort of at least skim the surface on a couple of developments. How come people like your national security advisor all of a sudden are talking about the drone word? How come there's a, if not a shift in narrative, at least a debate in the narrative? How come the ACLU, for example, is threatening legal action? How come it's becoming an issue, if there's so much convergence on it, how come it's becoming an issue which is both being publicly mentioned by U.S. officials as well as being publicly debated and maybe even publicly, well, becoming a part of a public lawsuit, litigation in the U.S.? How's that, and how are you guys in the U.S. Embassy prepared to deal with that?
Well, as I think you know, this is counterintelligence cooperation between the U.S. and Pakistan is not something that we discuss and debate openly here in the media. But what I can say is that the U.S. is committed to continuing to work with Pakistan on both of our counterterrorism goals. Both of our countries have lost substantial numbers victims to terrorism over the past years, and Pakistan has suffered more than anyone.
Ryan, I know that. I understand, and I'm not asking you to debate drones with me. I'm asking you to debate the debate about drones with me. That's what I want to talk about, because once again, there was all this noise, all this chatter about Ambassador Munter's unexpected exit. And that's, I take you back to last year's Associated Press story, where there were evidently divisions between the ranks, state versus CIA, 2 different narratives about to fire or not to fire drones on a very sensitive time. And now increasing heat from Pakistan about sharing drone technology. Pakistan's making the right noises on drones now, that they're not that bad, but why don't you give them to us? I'm talking about the debate. I'm not talking about the program. I'm trying to, once again, try to work with me here. I know your stated position, but give me something new.
Well, I'm not going to debate the debate with you in the media on this topic, Waj. This is something that's a topic that we discuss with our Pakistani counterparts in the channels of diplomacy, and that's where it needs to stay.
Okay, but what do you say to the Pakistanis when Defense Minister Chaudhry Ahmad Mukhtar or the guy who was there before him, what do you say to the Pakistanis when they say that they, or Naveed Qamar, the guy who's there after him, that give us drones, we'll use them as well as you use them, just make sure they're ours? What's the official response of the embassy?
The official response is that we know that this is a topic of great interest and of great concern, and it is a topic that we continue to discuss in channels with the government of Pakistan, but those are the channels in which we're going to discuss it.
Okay, okay. Give me a tweet-size response. A tweet-size response, it needs to be 5 seconds. Why did the apology on Salalah take so long?
I'm sorry, Waj, I didn't hear you. You went out for a second. Can you repeat that?
Okay, I'm going to take a quick break and come back. छोटी सी ब्रेक लेते हैं और रायन हैरिस और रॉबर्ट यूइंग के साथ फिर से हाजिर होते हैं. हमारे साथ रहिए. वेलकम बैक टू इख्तिलाफ. रायन हैरिस और रॉबर्ट यूइंग अमरीकी सफारत खाने के दो अहम अहलकार, एक पब्लिक रिलेशन सेक्शन में और दूसरे इकोनॉमिक सेक्शन में. Rob, I've been ignoring you for a while. Due apologies. I was trying to go with the ladies first module. Won't repeat it. Not with Ryan. She's a tough customer. So I'm going to come straight to you.
Okay.
What's up with the energy issues in this country right now? Now, once again, I know that there's been huge cooperation, much thanks to the efforts from your office. However, everybody keeps on throwing it, the pessimists in this relationship keep on throwing it back to the Iran-Pakistan pipeline issue, and which is complicated. And the narrative is simple. How can the Americans expect Pakistan not to get energy when everybody who lives in Pakistan knows that energy is Pakistan's Achilles heel? Why won't the Americans just understand?
Well, Waj, as you know, we are looking at considerable assistance and do fund considerable assistance to the energy sector in Pakistan. We've already put 400 megawatts onto the grid here in Pakistan, and within the next 2 years, that number will move up to 900 megawatts. We are also looking at a number of other options in the energy sector and for energy assistance. We have a robust dialogue here with the business community and with both the Ministry of Water and Power and the Ministry of Petroleum on energy issues, including a working group on energy.
Right. I mean, Rob, in your robust dialogue, tell me this. I understand the stated position. I appreciate it. Thank you. But last February, this is what I have. This is a paper the Jinnah Institute is publishing soon, and they gave me access to it, which I thank them for. And they said that it cites that last February, the U.S. Secretary of State threatened sanctions against Pakistan for the country's attempts at repairing its damaged Achilles heel. Energy. If Pakistan can continue to progress on the Iran-Pakistan pipeline, she would assess before the U.S. House Appropriations Subcommittee on State and Foreign Operations. Sanctions placed on the U.S.-Iran Sanctions Act would be particularly, quote, particularly damaging to Pakistan because the economy is already quite shaky. That's mean. You know, the secretary, the good Secretary of State knows that Pakistan is hurting on energy. Just look around you. Talk to any Pakistani, you'll know hours upon hours of gas load shedding and power load shedding. I mean, why let America's Iran policy drive America's Pakistan policy?
Well, Raj, I don't want to get into a hypothetical here in terms of a pipeline that is not yet built. But again, I would like to stress the projects that are ongoing that we have done, including things such as refurbishment of turbines at Tarbela Dam, looking at other projects. All of these have brought substantial megawatts onto the grid. I also note the TAPI pipeline that we are working with the government of Pakistan on as well.
I know you guys have been working on Tarbela and Sapara and Goma and all of those dams. I understand.
That's correct.
But there's an awkward irony. I went and dug up some of this stuff, and evidently there's a pipeline, and it's not a hypothetical because it exists, between Turkey and Iran. And there's been no noise from Washington about that. That pipeline is functioning and is functional, not fully functional, but it exists in real life. And here you are rather, making no real noises about it. Meanwhile, Pakistan and its imaginary pipeline with Iran is, well, sanctions are on the way, evidently, according to the good Secretary Clinton. So once again, help me out here as a Pakistani. Help me understand why my country will suffer from sanctions from your country if all we are trying to do is get some gas?
Again, I don't want to get into a hypothetical on this for a pipeline that has not been built or constructed yet.
Waj, if I could add to that, Waj, I don't want to refute the reports of the Good Jinnah Institute, but I'm not aware that the Secretary Clinton has threatened Pakistan with anything, let alone, as Robert said, about a hypothetical. So, you know, we're talking.
This is inferred as a threat, absolutely, Ryan. But she said that she told the U.S. Subcommittee on State and Foreign Operations last Feb that, quote, it would be any sanctions under the Iran Sanctions Act of the U.S., quote, any sanctions would be particularly damaging to Pakistan because the economy is already quite shaky. I know she's trying to warn that sanctions are going to be bad, but there was still air. That, by the response, evoked another fiery response from our foreign minister, Hina Rabbani Kar. And she, by the way, said that we are, and that's where this war of words started, thus this question. She said, we are a sovereign country and we will do whatever is in the interest of Pakistan. All of these projects in Pakistan's national interest will be pursued and completed irrespective of any extraneous considerations. This is huge. This could become the next bilateral problem. And that's why I want a serious response on it.
I think you're overstating the issue, to be honest. Pakistan is absolutely a sovereign country, and we respect that sovereignty. We recognize that the energy problem is at the foremost of Pakistan's concerns right now, which is why the U.S. is spending the vast majority of its assistance resources into helping Pakistan solve that crisis.
I'll take that as a yes, no, or maybe response, which means it was the perfect diplomatic response. Ryan Harris from the Public Affairs section, and of course Robert Ewing from the Economics section. Thank you, both of you, for taking precious time out of what is a very important and a very busy week. Facilitations from Aaj TV for the re-election of your 44th president. Thank you very much. और मेरी तरफ से आज हेडक्वार्टर्स कराची से आज इख्तिलाफ हुआ है अमरीकी एम्बेसी के दो अहम एहलकारों से. The purpose was simple. अमरीका जैसा भी हो, जो भी हो, हमारा इत्तेहादी totally comprehensively तो नहीं, but definitely in a lot of ways is an important country to keep track of. इसलिए बहुत सारे सवाल हमारे थे जो हमने उनसे नहीं किए, वक्त महदूद है, मगर एक चीज़ महदूद नहीं कि आज टीवी और स्पेशली इख्तिलाफ आपको उन लोगों की राय लाएंगे और उन लोगों से इख्तिलाफ करते रहेंगे जिनका मौक़िफ़ आपके लिए और पाकिस्तान के लिए ज़रूरी है. वजाहत सईद खान को इजाज़त दीजिए. खुदा हाफ़िज़.